Ladies and gentlemen, our next session, Know Your Customer, How Intelligence Drives Growth in Retail.
All right, let's dive in. Hi everyone, welcome to Know Your Customer, How Intelligence Drives Growth in Retail. I'm going to be your moderator today, Jeanine Silberblatt. I'm the president and board chair of the Fashion Incubator of San Francisco. And we have a great panel for you today. I've been saying all week, gems will be dropped, so get ready. I have to my immediate left Anna Banks. She's the Senior Vice President of Personalization and Performance Marketing at Sephora. We have Melissa Titoris, who is our VP of Retail here at Zeta. Michelle Watkins, Chief Marketing Officer for Raymour & Flanigan, and Tarath Kamdar, the GM of Global Luxury at eBay. So the panel's stacked. Let's just get right into it. So we're going to start with customer intelligence and loyalty, and I'll read the question, and everyone's going to tackle it in a slightly different way. But first, we're just going to start with asking everyone how they can summarize their company's approach to collecting and converting data into actionable insights and intelligence, which is what we're here to talk about, and really share an example of a game-changing insight. And what we mean by that is something that you've learned about your customer that's really infiltrated your strategy. And I'm going to start with Tarath, and just in your role as GM of Global Luxury at eBay, how does that show up for you guys?
Yeah, and one of the things to highlight about eBay, we're a 28-year-old company. So we've collected tens of billions of transactions over this year. We have 132 million active global buyers, 1.9 billion listings at any one point in time. This has allowed us to collect behavioral consumer data and segment that data out to understand where we should take specific actions. And some of the learnings and the AI that we built around this has really led to where should we focus. So we've actually built a machine learning model that allows us to decipher this data very quickly, leverage AI to actually personalize messaging, email subject lines, and other initiatives. But a massive insight that we discovered about 3 years ago that has led to the revamped strategy for eBay was around trust. We needed to build foundational trust on the secondhand marketplace so buyers and sellers can be protected and sell and buy in a whole new way. And that led to what we call the focused vertical strategy. That's luxury, fashion, collectibles, home and garden, and refurb. This accounts for over 80% of our top line sales. And so this is the areas where we cannot lose the market. We want to be in a position to win these markets over time. So we set sail on a journey on trust, building authenticity programs around this journey, and starting to create relevant customer experiences around trust and every messaging out-of-the-box experience, and creating a holistic strategy that encompasses marketing, loyalty, CRM, in a whole new way that eBay's never done before. And this is something that we speak on in every earnings report, and it's part of our go-forward strategy as well. So we're very, very excited about how we're leveraging this data. And now, as the strategy progresses on a monthly basis, we're learning new things around consumer behavior that's driving one of our most important metrics, which is customer satisfaction score. And the output of leveraging this data, driving trust, has resulted in these focus categories growing 7 points faster than the core marketplace, and customer satisfaction score growing by about 20 points.
That's fantastic. Love the focus in that driving where you guys win. So going to you, Anna. So Sephora is highly regarded by its peers on this front. And as SVP of Personalization Performance Marketing, can you elaborate on the Sephora approach to this?
Yeah, sure. First, huge thank you for any of the fans who are in the audience. Every time I go anywhere, Sephora folks come up to me, so always love that.
Right here.
Yes. I want to call out that we're a really high-frequency retailer. So that also means that for us, about 90% of our transactions are recognized. We know who you are because we have a very strong loyalty program. It's a really unique situation to be high frequency and have really high recognition rates. So with our data, so there are three things I kind of want to call out. I'm going to do a little acronym soup for us. The first one is around CLV. So one of the first things that we have done is create a CLV model, a 30-month CLV model, which allows us to know for every individual person, Melissa, Tarath, what are they worth to us over the next 30 months. That model also allows us to understand what behavior really drives revenue. So we put in 250 drivers, and we do the analysis around what are the ones that really drive incremental revenue. Like, is it signing up for a credit card? Is it getting someone who buys makeup to buy hair care or fragrance? Is it getting somebody who is in the loyalty program to redeem the cash back? So CLV is first acronym. Second one is CRM. So we have 5 core CRM programs. They are Welcome Series, At Risk, Lapsed, Replen, and finally Post-Purchase. And we use a lot of our modeling to really drive them. So at risk, we pay attention to your data around your behavior, your purchase behavior patterns. And if you are trending to look like you are going to become lapsed or not following the same behavior pattern that we've seen you in the past, that triggers particular outreach that we give to that person to make sure they don't become the next category, which is lapsed, which means we have not seen you in more than 12 months. And so that also triggers unique offers in particular. So we use modeling around it, which gets to the third category, which is ML. So I wanted to give ML its own moment in the sun. Obviously, I've mentioned it with the other two around CLV and CRM. But ML modeling also is a super important work stream in and of itself that allows us to understand the propensity who is most likely to buy in a particular category, but also allows us to do recommendations, next best product, next best campaign, next best offer. So those are the 3.
And that's why Sephora is Sephora. So Michelle, I want to invite you to kind of speak to accumulation of data from a slightly different perspective, right? So as a furniture retailer, you're not high frequency, you're lower frequency, hyper spend. So can you share your perspective on data collection and actions?
So very, somewhat similar circumstance in that we are able to get to 100% or roughly 100% data capture because most of our transactions are all delivery. So we're lucky. We know who our customer is and we're able to identify them. But the challenge is we are not high frequency. This is definitely not a transaction that's happening on a very frequent basis. So for us, it's so important, one, we focus still on traditional CRM. So we're still doing, welcome programs and lapsed customer and post-purchase. But really what we need to do and understand in our data is looking for those triggers that indicate and that we can model that says a customer is in the market. Because we may not have seen from them for 3 to 5 years. And so understanding when they're ready to make a purchase is really important. Furniture and mattresses are a very intentional purchase. There's a lot of research typically that's going into it. So there are a lot of triggers that are being thrown up, which is a very positive thing. And it's a pretty big transaction when a customer is making it. Now, typically it's only maybe 1 piece, 2 pieces if we're lucky at one time. But there are periods of hyperspend as well where the customer is going to be purchasing more. So again, modeling and understanding in the data when that customer is in a period like that, whether that's a life stage change or a new move or a major remodel, is really important to us so that we can capture as much of those transactions in that time period that we can. But at the same time, we talked about it's a fairly large ticket, and for a lot of consumers, it can be the 3rd largest transaction they ever make. It can be, next to a home, a car, furniture can be that 3rd largest. So it's a really, really important transaction. And so we put, much to what you're talking about around customer satisfaction scores, we put a huge amount of value in that. It's a very, very visible thing within our company. This morning, the CMO of CVS was talking about just a simple concept around listen and then action. And that's really what we look at from our customer satisfaction scores. We make sure we reach out to every customer, whether we're reaching out to them first to ask them what their satisfaction level was, or if we see it in social listening or whatever, to try to solve those problems. Because as most of you know, you don't necessarily always, unfortunately, remember great service, but you remember bad service. You remember that bad experience. And so for every one of you who had, for example, a bad furniture delivery experience, you may love that piece of furniture, but you're never buying from that retailer again. So that customer satisfaction is huge for us as well as a trigger.
Right, so you're hearing customer satisfaction, trust, the data-driven approach. And Melissa, I'm going to ask you to round us out quickly on this topic, and just Zeta, as you're thinking about creating and adding value for customers, what's your perspective on this?
Yep, sure. So at Zeta, taking first-party data being that golden record, that most important customer, what Zeta does is we take our data and match it against a retailer's data to round out the 360 outside the 4 walls with intent signals, what people are reading to understand that life stage perhaps, where they're transacting, where they're walking in with their footsteps and visiting, to then use those intent signals to, and also from a response perspective, we have an insight at Zeta to be able to help marketers understand You might have a consumer that responds to you well in email, but yet in your competitors, they're responding really well to programmatic ads or SMS or direct mail. And so to have that insight, you can really create a more customized journey that is not only how they're engaging with your brand, but from the response perspective, data is only data until you activate it in a very profitable manner. So understanding the channels that are profitable, and we all know that there's a million different journeys to take. One of the things that is a trending channel is connected TV. And knowing that you can, slap up a little QR code when that TV is paused on stream, and you can create a microsite that connects right back to the content that they're watching. Like, who's a Yellowstone fan out there? Why not create the look, Beth's looks, if you sell ready-to-wear dresses and things like that that look just like Beth on Yellowstone? And then ultimately, from the activation perspective, prospecting. Being able to look within the same technology where you're really getting your current customers driving and retention getting driven deeper, but the top of the funnel is so important, and to spend the money in the channel with the right person that you're prospecting against, really, really critical. But all of this from a privacy perspective, we're very strong. We have a chief privacy officer, and making sure that we are very nimble and changing with all the rules and regulations. So it's just bringing all of this data, drowning in data and starving for wisdom, but being able to act against it.
Okay.
Drowning in data, starving for wisdom.
Right, that's a bumper sticker. We're making one. You can buy it later. Okay, so we've laid the groundwork, so we're going to move a little faster, and we're going to get into strategic partnerships and deals. We know that good collaborations and partnerships are one way of acquiring customer data and acquiring new customers, but also a way of demonstrating that you understand who your customers are. And every brand on the stage has taken a slightly different approach to partnerships. So Melissa, I'm going to start with you, kind of just like set the groundwork for like what Zeta's seen really quickly on the partnerships front, and then we'll kind of hit on how everyone's kind of tackled partnerships.
Yep, mashups like Macy's with Toys R Us. You've got Crocs with Taco Bell. When you see intent signals and to know who you need to partnership, as retailers, before we had all this AI and all this data, we'd look where our door sits next to what door in a strip center, and let's create a partnership. Sephora and DSW, like maybe that makes sense. But now you have all this third-party data that can really amplify the brands that you should partner with. So
Right. So the idea of being more open-minded, like
Yes.
you may share customers with someone who you wouldn't have thought of. Interesting.
Yes.
So I'm going to go to Anna next in Sephora. Sephora has a slightly different approach as they think about partnering with brands. There's this retail media network, and I'm hoping you can kind of talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, we consider all of our brands our partners, mainly because our differentiator is our assortment. So there are things that we sell at Sephora that you cannot find anywhere else, and it is critical for us to really have that sort of unique portfolio. It is why we have an accelerator program really focused on BIPOC founders and a whole variety of things where our merchants and our marketing folks are focused on like cultivating the brand relationships. Now that said, many of our brands, they came to us and said, we would like another outlet to be able to speak to your beauty shopper. Like Sephora, we want to be able to leverage that really rich and wonderful first-party data that you have, especially since we're in this like cookie deprecation land, like we are sitting on gold. And so for a while, we had already been doing off-site targeting for our brands, doing off-site media targeting. But a year ago, we actually launched our on-site offering. We actually worked with one of those white label partners that creates the ad publishing ability within our site. And we went on to launch that in several places. I want to call out that like the industry is so hot for retail media networks right now, and everyone's like, oh my God, we got to grow faster. We actually are taking the opposite approach. We want to be really thoughtful in the way that we unlock additional inventory, because we're all about a curated experience on our site. And so we are leveraging our data now to target people on our site. And eventually we'll get to like more sophisticated one-to-one, some of the really juicy stuff that I talked about earlier, bringing that into the targeting on the site. But right now we're keeping it pretty simple.
But to your point, retail media networks are hot. So really cool to hear how you're approaching that. So Michelle, as we talked about partnerships, your focus was really more around your technology partnerships. Can you say a little bit more about how Raymour and Flanagan's thinking about that?
Sure. I think we take I don't want to say a slightly different approach, but just a little bit different way of looking at data and thinking about partnerships because, everybody talks about first-party data, and obviously we need to collect as much as we can in that arena. But what we found as well is that our partners, and nothing against retail media networks, but some of our partners are willing to partner with us where it's not even within a media network. And so one of the things I always encourage is ask your partners, ask your vendors, ask them what data they have, ask them what research they're doing, what information they have. When I first started with the company about a year ago, I dug into all the data and research that we had, but I found that our partners were such a rich resource of information and knowledge about furniture customers, mattress customers, how they purchase, how they buy. And then we extended that and said, okay, if you have all this data and you know so much about the customer, where can you partner with us to target those customers together? Not necessarily because we're paying, but because it's mutually beneficial for both of us to do that. And I think, again, using those partners, vendors, whomever it is, to see how you can extend your intelligence and make your data go further by being able to tap into them. And that goes even further to, just some of your, regular media vendors. What Google can do for you in terms of getting insights out of their data if you need knowledge soon. They can put surveys into the field really quickly for you to get a piece of information if there's something, you're stuck on that you need to move forward. Pinterest, Facebook, they all have great data that they can mine to give you insights, better understanding the customer mindset, and move you forward in ways that your data alone potentially can't do that.
Great. And Tarath, you're going to round us out on partnerships. It's been really interesting. You spoke to trust earlier, and you can kind of see it in some of the deals that eBay's been doing lately. Can you talk a little bit about kind of your roadmap on partnerships?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear everyone's approach on partnerships, and it's very creative, right? Every organization's trying to figure out or serve their purpose.
Right.
For us at eBay, if you think about it, we've been the OG of e-commerce, right? We've always been a pre-owned website.
Right.
And now you see we're living in the world of our sustainability and circular economy. It's just booming, and it's becoming a talk track.
Yeah.
And so for us, we're like, what could we build in-house versus what do we have to go out-house and do deals on? And that's the reason we've done deals and partnerships and strategic partnerships with like the Gemological Institute of America to have authentication of all finished jewelry. We're the only ones that have that. So now you can buy finished jewelry on eBay, $500 or more, like Cartier bracelets, and now you're going to get the real thing from GIA. And one of the things that we focus on a lot is how do you accelerate not only trust, but accelerate that resale economy and create a more sustainable environment. And now we've been doing a lot of acquisitions around it, right? So a company we bought last year is called Known Origin out of United Kingdom in the NFT Web3 space. And we believe NFTs are starting to take off with digital twins in the watch world. Breitling right now provides an NFT for every watch sold. Panerai just announced they're about to do that. We're seeing it in the handbag world. And that's going to provide somebody a solution in their wallet with one click to be able to resell, understand their service history, and create traceability. And to attack this in the apparel world, a couple months ago we announced an acquisition called CertiLogo. So hopefully one day you'll see QR tags on my jacket or your clothing, scan it, one click, get all the data on it, so there's a data play, and instantly resell right back through eBay, right? And one of the great things that we're establishing now in the strategic partnership realms is the strategic deals with the brands, the fashion and luxury brands, coming first time ever to eBay. And this April, we launched a program with brands. We have 30 plus brands, a lot more brands to come. We're officially signing agreements to first time ever play on eBay and allowing us to create a resale economy for them. And this is all in the spirit of how do you get into people's closets, make it super easy for them to resell, and create more of a sustainable environment. Because there's a lot of regulation being passed out of Europe right now where brands are going to be more responsible and accountable for what happens in their second life, third life, fourth life of products. I hope I have that many lives one day, but we'll see. And avoid landfills and waste, right? And that is really important in the world we're living in the future. So this is where we do a lot of strategic activities.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see. I'm glad you're kind of already getting us to think about the future in the conversation because that's where we're going next. This kind of last topic, future roadmap. I want to ask all of the panelists. So you're in your strategic meetings, the leadership teams are thinking about what's next. Share with the audience just kind of key considerations, key investment areas as you're thinking about specifically understanding your customer and kind of the future of retail for you guys. And I'm going to stay with you, Tarath, on starting on that topic. Since you started taking us there, let's go there.
Oh, yeah. So again, it all starts with understanding your customer, like she mentioned as well, and just building and taking actions against that, right? And one of the things we've seen is people want more ways of simplified selling, instant selling, easier to filter through the billions of products we have at eBay. And as a result, we're investing significantly in AI. And AI is becoming a buzzy word out there, but what are the applications, right? We launched something we announced publicly called Magical Listing. What is that? With your phone, I can take a photo of this watch, computer vision technology could recognize it. We can automate, leveraging AI to write a description for you, make your listing process so much easier. We're doing that across photo as well. How do you clean up photos, make higher quality photos? How do you superimpose photography? These are areas that we're feeding in innovation. Driving that, we're seeing the Gen Z. We speak about Gen Z all the time, but we found in a study that over the last 12 months, 80% of Gen Z is buying pre-owned over new. And as a result, they also love interacting in the new TikTok, Instagram world and buying through that type of medium of social media meets commerce. And as a result, we've launched something we call eBay Live. Live shopping, live commerce, video commerce, where brands and sellers can tell their stories. It's all about the future of storytelling to Gen Z. And in this, you see emojis flying, comments coming, 16 to 30,000 viewers on average. And it's an area we're investing into. Why? Because this is where we think the future of commerce is starting to head. And now we're starting to plant the seeds and make the bets around this area.
Love that. And I'm going to go to you next, Michelle. I know we talked, so I'm glad you brought up generative AI. Obviously, it's a lot of what we're talking about today. And you mentioned generative AI in the topic of personalization. So as you look at your roadmap, can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I think it's just such an exciting area right now when you think about how many challenges we've had around personalization at scale, or how well AI has helped us get to far better targeting. But oftentimes we talk about that in terms of getting the right offer in front of the customer at the right time. And we don't talk enough, I think, about content and the quality of the content in that interaction. And it's a little bit of a black box. You're not necessarily sure exactly. You can't see everything that's getting in front of your customer. And so that's why I'm so excited here about generative AI. There's tech today that can help a lot in the furniture shopping or mattress shopping experience, right? So you can use your phone and use AR to look at a model of that a 3D model of that in your room. So I can see what that sofa looks like in my room. But somebody had to create that model. Somebody had to model that piece of furniture. That takes time. You look at all the SKUs that are in your assortment, that's going to take a lot of time. That's not an easy undertaking. If you think about, you can do a 3D room planner for somebody. So we can take all the furniture they're thinking about buying, put it into a very realistic looking 3D rendering that can go to 2D and look beautiful. But again, it takes time to get there. So when you're thinking about in the last 5 years where we've gotten to in terms of CGI and the quality from a photography and video perspective, it's just so exciting where it just wasn't realistic. The fidelity was not there. And now, if you combine that with what generative AI can do for us in the future, I'm not saying it's happening today because there's still a lot of challenges there, right?
It's early.
But you think in the future as to what that can do in terms of creating inspirational and unique experiences for the customer, it's really, really exciting. But again, that caution on generative AI, there's a thing called Amara's Law around technology adoption. I'm going to slaughter it when I say it, but basically, we all start by overestimating the impact of technology, and then there's an inflection curve where we underestimate it. So right now, I think we're overestimating it, but you have to be there and work on it today so that when we're at the point where everyone else is underestimating it, you're in the sweet spot. You're using it, and it's impacting you with your customers day in and day out.
That's great. That's a great insight. And I'm going to go to you next and end with you, Melissa. Personalization, is that the roadmap, or is there more that you want to talk about?
I want to riff on the content piece of it, but take a slightly different angle on it. Because personalization at scale, it allows for the opportunity for so much versioning, like taking data and creating like a zillion different versions. So every single individual person potentially going to get a different experience, ideally a relevant best experience, which is awesome. And when you have so much data, how do you know which is the stuff that's really useful and which is the stuff that's just kind of like noise? And so having the right tools and systems to know like what's the useful stuff and what's the noise, we certainly think about that. And then related to that, is balance, like the balance between how you show up as your brand and how much you let the machines make the decisions. And so we're thinking a lot about that. Like when we have something specific we as Sephora want to put our finger on the scale for, how do we make sure we're creating the systems that allow us to balance the two of those? Like let the machines do their thing, but also have a point of view.
Right.
Which leads to the last thing, which is around change management. So moving into this world where so much can be automated and so much new decision making, it means a lot of change for a lot of people in the way they do their processes, in the way they do their jobs. And for me, it's really important that we are being thoughtful and respectful and in making that journey as things start to evolve.
And we have at Zeta a roadmap of 24 months with a whole retail strategy. And think of it on the perspective that it's macro trends on a local level. So you have individuals, you also have markets, and all of that is changing. With COVID, this whole great migration happened. People moved out of the cities. I moved into something called the rural suburbs. And I gotta tell you, the retailers are not keeping up with how the wealth is moving. When I walk into a store that I would have gone downtown Dallas, and then there's one up and out where I am, totally different product, but yet I am a same person. So retailers really need to start using that data from a roadmap perspective. Think weather. Weather is baked in, and weather impacts the way people think, the way people shop, the way people engage with your brand. So from those two perspectives and making the trends themselves be the core center, all of the data is telling you what's happening inside your four walls. We're also building out a loyalty score that takes into account not what somebody's doing in your brand. Think what somebody's doing outside of your brand, how much wallet share is getting spent with your competitors, how many times they're visiting your competitors, how many times, all of this data coming together to give you more insight, and then you'll be able to look at a totally different dynamic of your customers with a loyalty score. And then when you look at retail in 2030, walls are falling down. Retailers need to stay up with all the mashups and marketplaces that are happening. I think everything's gonna change vastly and make things different. I love that Sephora offers opportunity for service. There's a lot of companies out there that don't do service. It's a totally different dynamic to engage your consumer with that.
It's great. And we have like a little over a minute. So let's have a little fun and just do like a lightning round to wrap up, kind of spring it on them. So like, let's do like, if it's one thought, I want everyone to remember, like, you know, a word, a thought, as we end with understanding the customer and thinking about intelligence. If you remember nothing else, I'll try to make eye contact and see who'll go with me first. Right? Okay. So, Michelle, I got
Sure.
one. If you remember nothing else.
If you remember nothing else, data is nothing without intelligence.
Data is nothing without intelligence. I like that. Okay, Tarath is making eye contact now. Okay, second person.
If nothing else, the word flexibility. I think the world we're about to go into uncertainty in the next 16 to 18 months, so we're going to have to be open-minded, very flexible, always keep understanding your customers. That's the number one thing.
Okay, Anna, if nothing else, remember this.
Thoughtful innovation.
Thoughtful innovation. Melissa, I think you're rounding it out. If nothing else.
If nothing else, listen to what your customers are telling you. They are dropping their cookies everywhere. Every little bite you can soak up that's outside of your brand, inside of your brand, to get to that real personalization, you've got to look across the board, and you've got to be able to use the insights to drive activation that drives ROI, because otherwise we don't have jobs.
Boom, mic drop, 0 seconds. Thank you, everyone. Okay.